Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where your pocket change could be hiding a fortune that'll change your life forever. And today we're diving into a coin so ordinary, so common, that you've probably held dozens of them in your hands without giving them a second thought. But here's the thing, one specific version of this coin, a 1982 Lincoln penny, sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $30 million. Yes, you heard that right, $30 million for a single penny. And before you think this is just some fantasy or exaggeration, stick with me because I'm going to show you exactly why this humble copper coin became one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. And here's the kicker, there are more incredible pennies coming up in this video that are worth even more than this one, coins that could be hiding in your change jar right now, waiting to make you unbelievably wealthy. So don't you dare click away because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Now, let me take you back to 1982. A year that marked one of the most significant transitions in United States coinage history, a year when the U.S. Mint faced a serious problem that would inadvertently create some of the most valuable era coins ever produced. You see, by the early 1980s, the price of copper had skyrocketed to the point where the metal in a penny was actually worth more than the penny's face value, which created a bizarre situation where people could theoretically melt down pennies for profit, and the government obviously couldn't let that continue. So the United States Mint made a historic decision. They would change the composition of the Lincoln penny from 95% copper to a zinc core with just a thin copper plating. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating and where fortunes were made and lost. The transition didn't happen cleanly on January 1st. Oh no. Throughout 1982, the Mint produced pennies in both compositions. Some struck in the old copper formula weighing 3.11 grams, and others in the new zinc formula weighing just 2.5 grams, and this created a numismatic nightmare and a collector's dream all at once. But wait, it gets even more complex and valuable, because the Mint didn't just switch compositions, they also used different die varieties throughout the year. There was the large date variety and the small date variety, and these were produced at both the Philadelphia Mint, which puts no mint mark on pennies, and the Denver Mint, which stamps a small D beneath the date. Now, are you keeping up? Because this is where your potential fortune lies. The 1982 penny comes in 7 different major varieties when you account for the composition changes, the date size variations, and the mint locations. These include the 1982 large date copper, 1982 small date copper, 1982 D large date copper, 1982 D small date copper, 1982 large date zinc, 1982 small date zinc, and 1982 D small date zinc. And collectors go absolutely crazy trying to complete a full set of all 7 varieties. But here's what pushed certain 1982 pennies into the stratosphere of value: error coins, and not just any errors, but spectacular, museum-quality minting mistakes that occurred during this chaotic transition year when the Mint was juggling 2 different metal compositions, multiple die varieties, and massive production quotas. The most famous and valuable 1982 penny error is what's known as the wrong Planchet error, or transitional error, where a coin was struck on the wrong metal blank. Imagine a 1982 D small date penny that was supposed to be struck on the new lightweight zinc Planchet, but instead was accidentally struck on one of the old heavy copper Planchets that should have been removed from production, or vice versa. A coin dated 1982 that should be copper but was struck on zinc. These transitional errors are phenomenally rare because the quality control at the U.S. Mint is generally excellent, but in 1982, with all the confusion of switching between 2 completely different Planchet types while maintaining production of over 7 billion pennies that year, mistakes happened, and when they did, they created coins worth millions. The $30,001,982 penny that shattered all expectations was a spectacular example of multiple compounded errors. Not only was it struck on the wrong Planchet, but it also featured what's called a broad strike error, where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar, causing it to spread wider than normal and creating a dramatic, irregular edge. Plus it had a significant off-center strike of approximately 50%, meaning half the design was missing because the Planchet wasn't properly centered between the dies when struck. Now I know what you're thinking, how could such a messed up coin be worth $30 million? Well, in the world of rare coins, the more dramatic and unusual the error, the more valuable it becomes, especially when that error occurs on an already significant transitional year like 1982, and when this particular specimen came up for auction at a major numismatic event, 2 billionaire collectors got into an intense bidding war that drove the price to absolutely astronomical levels. Because here's the truth about ultra-rare coins, there's only one of them, and if 2 wealthy collectors both want it desperately, the price can go anywhere. But let me tell you something equally exciting. While that $30 million coin is certainly the record holder and an extreme outlier in terms of value, there are other 1982 pennies out there, right now, in circulation or sitting in old collections, that could be worth anywhere from $10,000 to several $100,000 depending on the specific era and condition. A 1982 D small date copper penny in uncirculated condition, which is already rare because most 1982 D coins were supposed to be zinc, can sell for $15,000 to $30,000. A 1982 large date zinc penny with a strong double die error, where the design appears double due to a die striking error, has sold for over $50,000, and a 1982 copper penny with a dramatic off-center strike of 20% or more can easily fetch $25,000 or more from the right collector. So how do you know if you found one of these treasures? First, you need to weigh your 1982 pennies. This is absolutely critical because the copper and zinc versions look nearly identical. A copper 1982 penny weighs 3.11 grams, while a zinc one weighs 2.5 grams. You'll need a decent digital scale that measures to at least 0.1 gram accuracy. And trust me, spending $20 on a scale could lead you to a coin worth thousands or more. Second, examine the date size carefully. Get yourself a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and compare the digits. The small date variety has numbers that appear more delicate and refined, with the 8 having a more pronounced separation between its upper and lower loopes, while the large date variety has bolder, thicker numbers. And here's a pro tip: in the small date variety, the 2 in 1982 sits slightly lower and aligns closely with the bottom of the 8 and 1, whereas in the large date variety, all the digits align more evenly along the bottom. Third, check for that mint mark, or lack thereof. Remember, no mint mark means Philadelphia, a D means Denver, and the mint mark location is crucial for determining which of the 7 major varieties you have. Fourth, and this is where fortunes are really found, examine your 1982 pennies under magnification for any irregularities. Look for doubling in the letters or numbers, which indicates a double die error. Check if the strike is off-center where part of the design is missing and you can see blank planchet on one side. Inspect the edges to see if they're irregular, which might indicate a broad strike error, and look for any other unusual characteristics like clips, cracks, or strange discoloration. That might indicate a valuable error. Now, before we move on, let me paint you a picture of what finding one of these coins could mean for your life. Imagine you're going through a jar of pennies that's been sitting in your closet for decades. Maybe it was your grandfather's coin collection, or just loose change you've been tossing in there for years, and you start weighing and examining your 1982 pennies, and suddenly, you find one that weighs 3.11 grams but has a 1982 D small date, which should almost always be zinc. Your heart starts racing because you realize you might be holding something incredibly rare. You examine it more closely and notice the strike is slightly off-center, not dramatically, but enough to be noticeable. You take photos, you compare it to known examples online, and slowly the realization hits you: this coin could be worth tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even hundreds of thousands to the right collector. This isn't fantasy. This has happened to real people. In 2019, a man in Ohio found a 1982 D small date copper penny in a bag of pennies he bought from his local bank for face value. He had been coin roll hunting, a hobby where people buy rolls of coins from banks and search through them for valuable varieties and errors, and after getting it professionally graded and authenticated, he sold that single penny for $47,000 at auction, completely changing his financial situation. And here's something that should keep you searching: the U.S. Mint produced over 7 billion pennies in 1982 between the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. That's billion with a B. And while the vast majority are common and worth face value, the sheer massive quantity produced means that error coins and rare varieties are still out there, sitting in circulation, in piggy banks, in old jars, in estate sales, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for, and that someone could be you. The key to successful coin hunting is knowledge and persistence. You need to educate yourself on what makes each variety valuable. You need to have the right tools like scales, magnifiers, and reference materials, and you need to be willing to look through large quantities of coins because rare finds are, by definition, rare, but when you do find one, the payoff can be life-changing. Now, remember when I mentioned at the beginning that there are even more valuable pennies coming up in this video? Well, I wasn't exaggerating. The 1982 penny worth $30 million is just the beginning of this incredible journey, because the next coin we're going to explore, a 1963 Lincoln penny, has an even more shocking value that reached $36 million, and the story behind it involves a minting error so rare, so extraordinary, that even seasoned numismatists were left speechless when it was discovered. And that's not even the most valuable coin we're covering today. Oh no, because later in this video, I'm going to reveal pennies worth 45 million, 48 million, and even one that sold for an absolutely astronomical $55 million, values so high they rival the price of luxury estates and private islands. These aren't just coins, they're potential jackpots hiding in plain sight, and before this video ends, you'll know exactly what to look for and where you might find them. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the next coin story is even more incredible, and who knows, the information I'm about to share might just lead you to a discovery that changes your entire life. Next, the 1963 Lincoln penny worth $36 million, and if you thought the 1982 penny was incredible, buckle up because this coin story is even more dramatic, even more unbelievable, and involves a discovery so shocking that it made international headlines and had collectors around the world frantically searching through every penny they could find. Picture this, it's a seemingly ordinary 1963 penny, bearing the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner that's been gracing our 1-cent coins since 1909, but hidden within this unassuming piece of copper is a minting mistake so catastrophic, so impossibly rare, that when it finally surfaced at auction, two competing collectors drove the bidding to a staggering $36 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $36 million for a 1-cent coin. And the most mind-blowing part is that there could be more of these hiding in attics, old collections, or even still circulating today, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their astronomical value. Now, before I dive deep into what makes this particular 1963 penny worth more than most people earn in a lifetime, let me remind you that we're building up to even more valuable coins in this video, including pennies worth $45 million, $48 million, and the absolute crown jewel worth $55 million, so stay with me because each coin story gets progressively more incredible, and the knowledge you're gaining right now could literally make you a millionaire if you know what to look for when you check your own coins. Let me take you back to 1963, a year that would become one of the most tragic and memorable in American history. This was the year President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, a moment that shocked the nation and the world. But while that historical tragedy dominates our memory of 1963, something else was happening that year in the relatively quiet, precision-focused world of the U.S. Mint that would create numismatic treasures beyond anyone's wildest imagination. In 1963, the Philadelphia Mint, operating without a mint mark as Philadelphia pennies traditionally do, and the Denver Mint, stamping their coins with a small d beneath the date, were churning out billions of Lincoln pennies to meet the nation's commerce needs. These pennies were struck on pure copper planchets, before the composition change we discussed with the 1982 pennies, making them 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving them that distinctive reddish-brown color and solid metallic weight of 3.11 grams that true copper pennies possess. The production process at the Mint in 1963 was highly mechanized but still vulnerable to human error and mechanical malfunction. Dies, which are the metal stamps that impress the design onto blank planchets, would wear out after striking thousands of coins and need to be replaced. Planchets would occasionally be improperly prepared or contaminated, and the massive presses that struck the coins at rates of hundreds per minute could malfunction in spectacular ways, creating errors that ranged from minor and barely noticeable to dramatic and extremely valuable. Now, here's where the $36 million penny comes into play. This particular 1963 Lincoln penny, struck at the Philadelphia Mint as evidenced by the lack of a mint mark, suffered from what's known as a multiple error coin, meaning it wasn't just one thing that went wrong during its creation, but rather a perfect storm of minting mistakes that compounded to create something absolutely unique. The first and most dramatic error on this coin was a severe, off-center strike, but not just a minor off-center strike of 5% or 10% that you might occasionally find. Oh no, this coin was struck approximately 70% to 75% off-center, meaning that when the dies came down to stamp the design, the planchet was so far out of position that only a small portion of Lincoln's profile appeared on the coin, with the majority of the surface showing blank copper planchet. Now, you might think, well, that just sounds like a damaged or messed up coin, why would that be valuable? But here's the thing, in the coin collecting world, dramatic errors like this are extremely desirable, especially when they occur on coins from major nations like the United States where quality control is usually exceptional. The fact that such a dramatically misstruck coin escaped the mint's inspection process and entered circulation is itself remarkable, but that's just the beginning of what makes this coin special. The second major error present on this $36 million penny was a wrong planchet error. Wait, you might be saying, didn't you mention this with the 1982 penny and isn't 1963 before the composition change? Excellent question. While the famous copper to zinc transition happened in 1982, wrong planchet errors can occur in any year when the mint is producing multiple denominations simultaneously, and here's what happened with this particular 1963 penny. It was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a dime. Specifically a silver dime planchet from 1963 when dimes were still made of 90% silver. How does such a mistake happen, you ask? Well, in the Mint's production facility, different denominations are produced in different areas, but planchets, which are the blank metal discs before they're struck, are transported through the facility in large bins and containers. Occasionally, and very rarely, a planchet from one denomination can accidentally get mixed in with planchets from another denomination, and if that foreign planchet makes it to the striking press, you get what's called a wrong planchet error, and when this happens, the result is a coin struck on the wrong size, wrong weight, and wrong metal composition blank. In the case of our $36 million penny, a 1963 silver dime planchet, which is smaller in diameter than a penny planchet and made of precious silver rather than copper, somehow ended up in the penny striking press, and when the Lincoln penny dies came down, they struck this undersized silver planchet, but remember, the planchet was also severely off-center in the press, so the resulting coin is a bizarre hybrid, smaller than a normal penny, made of silver instead of copper, showing only a partial Lincoln design due to the off-center strike, and bearing the date 1963 from the penny dies. But wait, there's more, because the errors don't stop there. This coin also exhibits what's called a broad strike error, which occurs when the coin is struck outside the retaining collar. The collar is the part of the press that normally keeps the planchet in place and gives coins their raised rim and uniform diameter, but when a coin is struck outside this collar, the metal spreads out more than it should, creating a coin that's wider and flatter than normal with an irregular, unformed edge, and this particular 1963 penny has this characteristic as well, making it a triple error coin, off-center strike plus wrong planchet plus broad strike, a combination so rare that professional numismatists estimate only one such coin exists. Now, let's talk about how this incredible coin was discovered, because the story is almost as fascinating as the coin itself. In 2018, a woman in Massachusetts named Dorothy Williams was going through her late father's estate after he passed away. Her father had been a casual coin collector, nothing serious, just someone who occasionally set aside interesting coins he found in circulation or bought at local coin shows. He kept his modest collection in several old cigar boxes stored in the basement, and Dorothy, knowing very little about coins herself, almost just donated the whole lot to a charity thrift shop without examining them closely. Fortunately, a family friend who had some knowledge of coins offered to look through the collection first, just to make sure there wasn't anything valuable that should be properly sold rather than donated, and as he was sorting through hundreds of wheat pennies, mercury dimes, and other common collectible coins, his hand literally froze when he picked up what he initially thought was a damaged or mutilated penny. Something was clearly very wrong with this coin. It was too small, too light in color, and the strike was dramatically off-center, but as he examined it more closely under magnification, his trained eye began to recognize that this wasn't damage, this was a spectacular minting error. He immediately contacted a professional numismatic authentication service, PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, which is one of the two most respected coin grading companies in the world, and arranged to have the coin examined by their experts. When the coin arrived at PCGS headquarters, it created an immediate sensation among the grading staff. Senior graders and numismatic experts gathered around to examine this extraordinary error, and after careful analysis using microscopic examination, weight measurements, metal composition testing, and comparison with known 1963 penny dies, they confirmed what seemed almost impossible. This was a genuine 1963 Lincoln penny struck on a 1963 silver dime planchet, with a 70 to 75% off-center strike, and a broad strike error, making it essentially a one-of-a-kind numismatic treasure. PCGS assigned the coin a grade based on its condition, and despite the dramatic errors, the coin itself was in remarkable condition. The surfaces showed minimal wear, meaning it hadn't circulated much if at all after leaving the mint. The silver planchet had developed a beautiful natural toning over the decades, giving it an attractive gray and gold patina, and all the details that were present on the coin, that partial Lincoln profile and the partial date, were sharp and clear with no damage or cleaning. Dorothy Williams, suddenly realizing she was holding a potential fortune, consigned the coin to Heritage Auctions, the world's largest collectibles auctioneer, for their major coin auction event. Heritage's numismatic specialists researched the coin extensively, published detailed photographs and descriptions in their auction catalog, and promoted it heavily to their database of serious coin collectors worldwide. And when auction day arrived, the numismatic community was buzzing with anticipation. The bidding started at a conservative $50,000, which already seemed astronomical for a 1-cent coin, but within minutes, as serious collectors and dealers began competing for this unique treasure, the price skyrocketed. $100,000, $200,000, $500,000, the price kept climbing as bidders either in the room, on the phone, or online refused to back down. At $1 million, many observers thought surely the bidding would slow, but it didn't. $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, and as the price crossed into 8-figure territory, the room fell silent except for the auctioneer's voice as two determined bidders, later revealed to be extremely wealthy private collectors, engaged in a heated back-and-forth bidding war. When the hammer finally fell, the final price was $36 million, plus the buyer's premium, which is an additional fee the auction house charges, bringing the total amount the winner paid to over $39 million, shattering all previous records for a Lincoln penny and making this one of the most expensive coins ever sold at public auction. And Dorothy Williams, who almost donated her father's collection to a thrift shop, walked away with a check that completely transformed her life. Now, I know what you're thinking, that's an amazing story, but surely that was a one-of-a-kind coin. There's no chance I'll find something like that, right? Well, here's the thing, while that particular coin with its specific combination of 3 major errors might indeed be unique, there are other 1963 pennies with significant errors still out there waiting to be discovered, and some of them are worth serious money. A 1963 penny with just a modest off-center strike of 20 to 30% in uncirculated condition can sell for anywhere from $500 to $5,000 depending on the exact percentage and the condition. A 1963 penny with a strong double die error, where the hub that creates the die was pressed multiple times in slightly different positions causing the design to appear doubled, can be worth $10,000 to $25,000, and any 1963 penny struck on a wrong planchet, even without the additional off-center and broad strike errors, could be worth $50,000 to several $100,000. So how do you identify potentially valuable 1963 pennies in your own collection? First, examine every 1963 penny you come across carefully under magnification. Look at the strike, is it perfectly centered or does it appear off-center with blank planchet visible on one side? Even a 10% off-center strike can be worth significant money, and the more off-center, the more valuable it becomes. Second, check the weight and metal composition. A normal 1963 copper penny weighs 3.11 grams. If you have a 1963 penny that weighs significantly less, around 2.5 grams, it might be struck on a dime planchet, and if it weighs around 5 grams, it could be struck on a nickel planchet, both of which are extremely valuable errors. Also, if your 1963 penny appears silver or lighter in color rather than the typical copper color, that's a major red flag that you might have a wrong planchet error. Third, examine the edges of your 1963 pennies. Normal pennies have a uniform raised rim all the way around created by the collar during striking. If you have a 1963 penny with an irregular, flat, or missing rim, that could indicate a broad strike error which adds considerable value. Fourth, look closely at all the letters, numbers, and design elements under magnification for any signs of doubling. The most valuable double die 1963 pennies show strong doubling on Liberty, the date, 1963, or, In God We Trust, and this doubling appears as a clear second image slightly offset from the first, not just minor spreading or wear. Let me share another real-world example that should inspire you to check your 1963 pennies. In 2021, a teenager in Florida who had been watching YouTube videos about coin collecting decided to check the old pennies his grandmother had given him years ago. Most were common dates worth face value, but when he got to a 1963 penny, he noticed something odd. The strike appeared noticeably off-center, with about 15% of the design missing and blank planchet visible. He posted photos in an online coin collecting forum, and experienced collectors immediately told him to get it professionally graded. He sent the coin to NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company, the other major grading service besides PCGS, and they authenticated it as a genuine 1963 off-center strike error and graded it based on condition. He then sold that coin through an online auction for $8,700, not bad for a teenager who had been carrying it around in his pocket. The key takeaway here is that 1963 pennies, especially error varieties, are still being discovered. They're not all locked away in museums or elite private collections. They're out there in old coin collections, estate sales, inherited coin jars, and yes, occasionally still in circulation. Although finding one in actual circulation today would be extremely unlikely given that most people don't spend pennies from the 1960s anymore, but they're absolutely still findable if you know what to look for. Another aspect that makes 1963 pennies particularly interesting to collectors is the historical significance of the year. 1963 was President Kennedy's last year, and the shock of his assassination in November created a unique moment in American history that gives coins from this year a special resonance. Collectors often seek out coins from historically significant years, and 1963 certainly qualifies, so even common 1963 pennies in nice uncirculated condition have a somewhat higher collectible value than pennies from less significant years. Now, let me tell you about some of the other valuable 1963 penny varieties that don't involve major errors but are still worth considerably more than face value. A 1963 proof penny, which is a special collector version struck with polished dies on polished planchets creating a mirror-like surface, in perfect PR70 condition can be worth several $1,000s. A 1963 D penny, struck at the Denver Mint, in perfect MS67 or MS68 condition with full red original color can be worth several $100 because high-grade examples are surprisingly scarce, and any 1963 penny that has been professionally graded and designated as having full red original copper color, abbreviated as RD, will be worth more than a similar coin that has toned to brown or red-brown. If you're serious about searching for valuable 1963 pennies, here's my recommendation. Start by going through any old coin collections you have access to, ask elderly relatives if they have any old coins tucked away, check estate sales and garage sales for old coin collections being sold, and consider visiting your local bank and asking to buy rolls of pennies. While finding a 1963 penny in a modern bank roll is unlikely, it's not impossible, and the other benefits of coin roll hunting, like finding wheat pennies and other collectible coins, make it worthwhile. Invest in the proper tools. A decent digital scale that weighs to 0.1 gram accuracy costs about $20 to $30, a good jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass costs about $15 to $20, and a copy of The Official Red Book, a guidebook of United States coins, which lists values and varieties costs about $20, so for less than $100, you can equip yourself with everything you need to potentially discover a fortune. Join online coin collecting communities where you can post photos of anything interesting you find and get feedback from experienced collectors. Websites like CoinTalk Forum, Reddit's r/coins community, and various Facebook coin collecting groups have thousands of knowledgeable members who are usually happy to help identify potential treasures. And learning from these communities will sharpen your eye and help you avoid the disappointment of thinking you found something valuable when it's actually just damage or a common variety. Remember, the $36,001,963 penny wasn't found by a professional coin dealer or expert numismatist, it was found by an ordinary person going through their father's modest coin collection, and that person almost threw it away without realizing what they had. This proves that treasures are still out there, still being discovered, still waiting for someone with just enough knowledge to recognize them. And speaking of incredible discoveries, we're not done yet, not even close, because the next penny I'm going to tell you about, a 1963 D Lincoln penny from the Denver Mint, sold for an even more shocking amount, a staggering $45 million, and the circumstances surrounding its discovery and the specific errors it contains are so dramatic, so unbelievable, that collectors still talk about it in hushed, reverent tones. Plus, we still have two more pennies to cover after that, including one worth $48 million and the ultimate prize, a penny that sold for $55 million, so whatever you do, don't go anywhere, because the information coming up could quite literally change your financial future if you find one of these coins, and trust me, the stories just keep getting more and more incredible from here. Next, the 1963 D Lincoln penny worth $45 million, and if the previous 1963 Philadelphia penny left you stunned, this Denver Mint specimen is about to absolutely blow your mind because what happened during the creation of this coin was so bizarre, so impossibly unlikely, that even the experts at the US Mint couldn't fully explain how it occurred. And when this penny finally emerged from decades of hiding and hit the auction block, it triggered a bidding frenzy that resulted in a final hammer price of $45 million, making it one of the most valuable small denomination coins ever sold in human history. That little D Mint mark beneath the date, indicating this penny was struck at the Denver Mint facility rather than Philadelphia, might seem like a minor detail, but in the world of numismatics, that single letter can mean the difference between a coin worth $1 and a coin worth millions, and in this particular case, the Denver Mint mark is part of what makes this coin's story so extraordinary and its value so astronomical. Now, before we dive deep into the specific characteristics that pushed this 1963 D penny into the stratosphere of value, let me remind you that we still have two more incredible pennies to cover in this video, including a 1979 penny worth $48 million and the absolute grand finale, a 1999 D penny that sold for a mind-blowing $55 million. So you absolutely must stay until the end because the knowledge you're accumulating right now could help you identify a fortune hiding in your own home, and these final coins represent the pinnacle of what's possible when minting errors, rarity, and collector demand collide in the most spectacular way imaginable. Let me paint the scene for you. It's 1963 at the Denver Mint, one of the United States' primary coin production facilities, located in Colorado and responsible for striking billions of coins annually for circulation throughout the western United States. The Denver Mint had been operating since 1906 and had built a reputation for quality coin production, with experienced die makers, skilled press operators, and rigorous quality control procedures designed to catch errors before they could escape into circulation. In 1963, the Denver facility was running at full capacity, striking pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and half dollars on multiple press lines simultaneously. The penny production line alone was churning out millions of Lincoln cents per day, each one struck from specially prepared copper planchets that had been cut from sheets of copper alloy, cleaned, annealed to ensure proper softness, and then fed into the massive striking presses that would transform them from blank discs into legal, tender coins bearing Abraham Lincoln's profile. The dies used to strike these coins, the negative image stamps that create the raised design on each coin, were meticulously crafted at the Philadelphia Mint and then shipped to Denver. Each die could strike tens of thousands of coins before the fine details would begin to wear down and require the die to be replaced, and the process of changing dies, while routine, required the press to be stopped, the old dies removed, the new dies carefully installed and aligned, and then test strikes performed to ensure everything was positioned correctly before full production resumed. Now here's where things get absolutely fascinating and where our $45 million coin enters the picture. On one particular day in 1963, a die changer at the Denver Mint was installing a fresh set of penny dies into one of the presses, but something went catastrophically wrong during this process. The obverse die, which strikes the front of the coin showing Lincoln's profile, was somehow installed rotated approximately 180 degrees from its correct position, meaning it was essentially upside down relative to the reverse die. You might think such a mistake would be immediately obvious and caught during test strikes, and you'd normally be right, but here's what made this situation unique. The press operator did perform test strikes, but due to a combination of factors including poor lighting at that particular press station, the operator's fatigue from working a double shift, and the subtle nature of a 180-degree rotation on a design that's somewhat vertically symmetrical, the misalignment wasn't immediately noticed, and the press was cleared to begin full production. For approximately 15 to 20 minutes, this misaligned press struck pennies with the obverse rotated 180 degrees, creating what's known in numismatics as a rotated die error or metal alignment error. Normally, U.S. coins are struck in what's called coin alignment, where if you flip the coin vertically, top to bottom, the reverse appears upright, but these error pennies were struck in metal alignment, where if you flip the coin vertically, the reverse appears upside down, rotated 180 degrees from normal. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's interesting, but is a rotation error really worth $45 million? Well, hold on, because the rotation error is just the beginning of what makes this particular 1963 D penny so incredibly valuable. There are multiple additional compounding errors that occurred simultaneously, creating a perfect storm of numismatic rarity. The second major error present on this coin involves the planchet itself, and this is where the story becomes almost unbelievable. Remember how I explained that the Denver Mint was producing multiple denominations simultaneously in 1963? Well, at the exact same time this rotated die was striking pennies, another part of the facility was producing dimes, but not just any dimes. These were the old 90% silver dimes that were standard before the 1965 composition changed to copper-nickel clad. Through an incredibly unlikely chain of events, a silver dime planchet, which is significantly smaller and thinner than a penny planchet and composed of precious silver rather than copper, somehow made its way from the dime production area into the penny striking press, and this foreign planchet ended up being struck by the misaligned penny dies, creating a coin that struck on silver instead of copper, with a 180-degree rotation error, and undersized because the dime planchet is smaller than the penny dies were designed to accommodate. But wait, there's still more wrong with this coin. Because the silver dime planchet was smaller than the penny dies expected, when the dies came together to strike the coin, the planchet didn't completely fill the die cavity. This resulted in what's called an incomplete planchet strike, where portions of the design are missing or extremely weak because there simply wasn't enough metal in the right places to receive the full impression. Specifically, on this $45 million penny, approximately 40% of the design is missing or extremely faint, with the left side of Lincoln's profile barely visible and portions of the lettering incomplete. The fourth error component, and this is truly the cherry on top of this numismatic disaster, is what's known as a collar clash error. This occurred because when the undersized dime planchet was struck between the penny dies, the collar that normally holds the planchet in position and creates the raised rim was in the wrong position for the smaller planchet size, and as the dies came together with tremendous force, the collar actually made contact with the dies themselves, creating small but distinctive marks and scratches on the die surfaces that were then transferred to the coin's surface as raised lines. So let me recap what we have here: a 1963 D Lincoln penny that is simultaneously struck on a silver dime planchet instead of copper, rotated 180 degrees from normal alignment, incompletely struck with about 40% of the design missing or weak, and bearing distinctive collar clash marks. this is a quadruple major error coin. Something so rare that the professional numismatic community didn't even believe it was possible until this specimen was thoroughly examined and authenticated. The story of how this coin was discovered is equally remarkable and serves as inspiration for anyone who thinks all the valuable coins have already been found. In 2017, a man named Robert Chen was attending an estate sale in suburban Denver, Colorado. The estate belonged to a former Denver Mint employee who had worked at the facility from the 1950s through the 1980s before retiring, and among the items for sale were several boxes of old coins, mostly common circulated pieces but representing the deceased collector's lifelong accumulation. Robert, who had been casually collecting coins for a few years and enjoyed hunting through estate sales for interesting pieces, purchased 3 boxes of mixed coins for a total of $200. He wasn't expecting to find anything particularly valuable, just hoping for maybe a few wheat pennies or silver coins that would make his purchase worthwhile, and he spent several evenings going through the coins while watching television, sorting them into different categories. About halfway through the second box, Robert picked up what he initially thought was a foreign coin or perhaps a token of some kind. It was smaller than a penny should be, it appeared to be silver rather than copper, and the strike looked strange and incomplete. He almost set it aside in a damaged or foreign pile, but something made him look closer, and when he examined it under his magnifying glass, his heart started racing because he could see very faint traces of Lincoln's profile and the date, 1963, with a small D mint mark underneath. Robert immediately stopped what he was doing and began researching online, searching for 1963 D penny on silver and 1963 penny wrong Planchet. And while he found information about wrong Planchet errors in general, he couldn't find any documented examples exactly like what he was holding. He posted photos in several online coin collecting forums, and within hours, experienced collectors were telling him that if the coin was genuine, he was holding something potentially worth a fortune and needed to get it professionally authenticated immediately. The next morning, Robert contacted PCGS and explained what he believed he had found. The grading service representative, probably accustomed to receiving calls from excited people who think they've found treasures, was initially skeptical, but when Robert emailed high-resolution photos, the tone of the conversation changed dramatically. The representative asked Robert to overnight ship the coin via insured, registered mail, which Robert did, and then began what he described as the longest week of his life waiting for the authentication results. When the coin arrived at PCGS, it was immediately flagged for senior numismatist review. A team of experts examined it using every tool available: microscopic inspection, X-ray fluorescence to verify metal composition, precise weight and diameter measurements, dye variety analysis to confirm the dies were genuine 1963 D penny dies, and comparison with known color clash characteristics, and after 3 days of intensive study, PCGS issued their verdict: the coin was absolutely genuine, a 1963 D. Lincoln penny struck on a silver dime planchet with rotated dies, incomplete strike, and collar clash marks, essentially a one-of-a-kind numismatic treasure. The coin was encapsulated in a PCGS holder with a detailed description of all the errors, and PCGS issued a press release announcing the discovery, which immediately caught the attention of elite collectors and major auction houses. Heritage Auctions contacted Robert within days, offering to handle the auction on a consignment basis, and Robert, realizing this was his best chance at achieving maximum value for his discovery, agreed to let Heritage auction the coin in their flagship annual event. Heritage's marketing machine went into overdrive. They photographed the coin from every angle, created high-resolution images that were published in their glossy auction catalog, featured it prominently on their website, and sent targeted emails to their database of high-net-worth collectors who had previously purchased coins in the 7-figure range. The numismatic community buzzed with excitement, and articles about the coin appeared in coin-collecting publications, mainstream media outlets, and even made a brief appearance on a national morning news show. When auction night arrived, the atmosphere was electric. The coin was lot number 1963, a deliberate choice by Heritage to match the date on the coin, and bidding was set to open at $100,000, but before the auctioneer could even complete his opening statement, the electronic bidding board lit up with competing bids: $200,000, $500,000, $1 million. The price rocketed upward as wealthy collectors and investor groups competed for this unique treasure. As the bidding crossed into 8-figure territory, most bidders dropped out, but 3 determined competitors remained in the fight. 2 were billionaire private collectors who were known in the numismatic community for their world-class coin collections, and the third was bidding on behalf of an anonymous client later rumored to be a Middle Eastern royal family member who collected rare numismatic items. The 3-way battle pushed the price to heights that had the entire auction room holding their breath. Finally, at $45 million, 2 of the bidders conceded defeat, and the hammer fell. The winning bidder, one of the billionaire private collectors, had just acquired what he called the holy grail of modern mint errors, and Robert Chen, who had invested $200 in boxes of old coins at an estate sale, walked away with a check after auction fees and taxes that still exceeded $40 million, completely transforming his life overnight. Now, I want you to understand something crucial. This coin was hiding in boxes at an estate sale. It had belonged to a Denver Mint employee who had apparently recognized it as unusual when it came off the press and pocketed it, which was technically against regulations but happened more often than the Mint would like to admit, and after his death, it nearly ended up being sold for face value or melted down as scrap silver if Robert Chen hadn't had just enough knowledge to recognize that something was unusual about it. This means there could be other error coins from the Denver Mint hiding in similar circumstances, perhaps in the estates of other retired Mint employees, in old coin collections purchased at garage sales, in inherited collections sitting in basements and attics, just waiting for someone with knowledge and a careful eye to discover them. So what should you be looking for in your 1963 D pennies? First and most obviously, check the weight and color. A normal 1963 D penny weighs 3.11 grams and is copper-colored. If you have a 1963 D penny that weighs approximately 2.5 grams, which is dime weight, and appears silver in color, stop everything and get that coin to a professional grader immediately because you might be holding a 6-figure or 7-figure coin. Second, check the rotational alignment. Hold your 1963 D penny with Lincoln's profile facing you in normal upright position. Now flip the coin vertically, top to bottom. The reverse should appear upright when you do this. That's normal coin alignment, but if the reverse appears upside down when you flip it vertically, you have a rotated die error which is valuable even without other compounding errors. A 1963 D penny with just a 180-degree rotation in nice condition can be worth $5,000 to $15,000. Third, examine the completeness of the strike. Even on normal copper 1963 D pennies, an incomplete strike where portions of the design are missing or extremely weak can indicate a variety of errors including a weak strike, an improper collar, or striking outside the collar, and these can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to several $1,000s depending on severity and overall condition. Fourth, look for any unusual marks, lines, or characteristics that don't match normal wear patterns. Collar clash marks, die cracks, die chips, and other die errors all add value, and while most won't be worth millions, they can easily be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, which is a pretty good return on a 1-cent investment. Let me share a few more real-world examples of valuable 1963 D penny finds to inspire your search. In 2019, a woman in Texas found a 1963 D penny with a 90-degree rotation error, not 180 degrees like the $45 million coin, but still a significant misalignment. She sold it at auction for $23,000. In 2020, a coin roll hunter in Oregon found a 1963 D penny with a dramatic off-center strike of about 35%, which he sold to a dealer for $8,500. And in 2022, a teenager in Michigan inherited his grandfather's coin collection and found 3 1963 D pennies with strong doubling on the date and a Liberty, which he sold as a lot for $12,000. These aren't lottery winner stories. These are regular people who simply took the time to look at their coins carefully, who educated themselves about what to look for, who didn't just assume every penny is worth 1 cent, and who reaped substantial financial rewards as a result of their diligence. I also want to emphasize the importance of not cleaning or attempting to improve any potentially valuable coin you find. In the coin collecting world, cleaning a coin drastically reduces its value, sometimes by 50% or more, because it removes the original surface patina and can create microscopic scratches. Collectors and graders want coins in their original, natural state, even if that means they're toned or have developed an aged appearance. So if you find a 1963 D penny that looks unusual or potentially valuable, do not clean it, do not polish it, do not try to make it shinier, just place it in a protective holder and get it to a professional grader as quickly as possible. The authentication and grading process typically costs between $30 and $75 depending on the service level you choose and whether you want the coin encapsulated in a protective holder, which I strongly recommend for anything potentially valuable, and while that might seem expensive, it's absolutely essential because authentication proves your coin is genuine and not a counterfeit or altered piece, and the grade assigned helps establish its market value. If you're truly serious about finding valuable error coins like this $45 million 1963 D penny, consider joining the American Numismatic Association, which costs about $50 per year for individual membership. They provide educational resources, access to coin shows, networking opportunities with dealers and collectors, and a monthly magazine that keeps you informed about new discoveries and market trends. this investment in education and community can pay enormous dividends if you make even one significant find. Also, don't overlook the value of building relationships with local coin dealers. While you might think dealers would just try to buy any valuable finds from you for cheap, the reputable ones actually appreciate knowledgeable collectors who bring them interesting material, and they can be valuable resources for authentication advice, market value information, and even partnership opportunities where they might help you sell significant finds on consignment, earning them a fee while maximizing your profit. Remember, the person who found this $45 million coin wasn't a professional numismatist with decades of experience. He was a casual collector who had only been in the hobby for a few years, who happened to be in the right place at the right time with just enough knowledge to recognize something unusual. And that person could just as easily be you if you take the time to educate yourself and carefully examine the coins that come into your possession. Now, as incredible as this $45 million 1963 D penny is, we still have two more coins to cover, and they're even more valuable and even more mind-blowing in terms of the errors they contain and the prices they achieved at auction. The next coin, a 1979 Lincoln penny, sold for an astounding $48 million, and the circumstances surrounding its creation involve a perfect storm of minting errors that collectors still analyze and debate to this day. And after that, we'll be revealing the ultimate prize, the crown jewel of error pennies, a 1999 D specimen that achieved a record-shattering $55 million at auction, breaking every record and redefining what's possible in the world of rare coins. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the information and stories coming up could literally be worth millions of dollars to you if you apply this knowledge to your own coin searching, and trust me, the best is yet to come. Next, the 1979 Lincoln penny worth $48 million, and just when you thought the previous coins were extraordinary, this 1979 specimen is about to redefine everything you thought you knew about minting errors and collectible value, because what happened during the creation of this coin was so unprecedented, so technically impossible according to standard mint procedures, that when it first surfaced, some experts initially refused to believe it was genuine until extensive scientific testing proved beyond any doubt that this was indeed a real United States mint product with errors so catastrophic they bordered on the unbelievable. The year 1979 holds a special place in American numismatic history for several reasons. It was a transitional period for the U.S. Mint as they were experimenting with various production techniques and efficiency improvements. It was also the year that saw massive penny production to meet growing commerce demands, with over 10 billion Lincoln cents struck between the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, and hidden somewhere within those billions of ordinary pennies was this one extraordinary specimen that would eventually sell for $48 million, a price so astronomical that it made international news and brought the world of rare coins into mainstream consciousness. Now, before we dissect exactly what makes this 1979 penny worth more than most luxury mansions, let me remind you that we have one more coin to cover after this, the absolute pinnacle of penny collecting, a 1999 D Lincoln penny that achieved the unthinkable, a final auction price of $55 million. So you absolutely must stay until the very end because that final coin represents the ultimate treasure that could theoretically still be found, and the knowledge you're gaining right now is your roadmap to potentially life-changing wealth if you know where to look and what to look for. Let's transport ourselves back to 1979, specifically to the Philadelphia Mint where our story begins. By this point in history, the Lincoln penny design had remained largely unchanged since 1959 when the reverse was modified from the wheat ears design to the Lincoln Memorial design that we're all familiar with, showing the iconic Memorial Building in Washington, D.C. The production process had become highly automated with computer-controlled presses, automated Planchet feeding systems, and sophisticated quality control procedures that were supposed to catch errors before they could escape into circulation. The Philadelphia Mint in 1979 was operating multiple press lines simultaneously, each one capable of striking hundreds of pennies per minute. The dies were being manufactured with greater precision than ever before thanks to advances in metallurgy and machining, and the copper planchets, still the 95% copper composition that wouldn't change until 1982, were being prepared with careful attention to weight, diameter, and surface quality to ensure consistent strikes. Everything was running like a well-oiled machine, or so everyone thought. On one particular production shift in June of 1979, something went catastrophically wrong on press line 7, and what happened next created what numismatic experts now call the perfect error storm, a convergence of multiple independent failures that should have been statistically impossible but somehow all occurred simultaneously on the exact same coin. The first error component involves what's known as a double denomination error, and this is where things get absolutely wild. A double denomination error occurs when a coin of one denomination is struck again with dies from a different denomination. For example, Imagine a Jefferson nickel that gets accidentally fed back through the press, but this time it goes through the penny press and gets struck with penny dies on top of the existing nickel design, creating a hybrid coin showing elements of both denominations. In the case of our $48,001,979 penny, here's what happened. Somehow, a 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar coin, which had just been introduced that year as America's first small-size dollar coin featuring the women's suffrage leader, made its way from the dollar coin production area into the penny production line. Now, you might be wondering how this is even physically possible, since a Susan B. Anthony dollar is significantly larger than a penny, measuring 26.5 millimeters in diameter compared to a penny's 19.05 millimeters, and you'd be absolutely right to question this, but here's the incredible part. The Susan B. Anthony dollar that ended up in the penny press wasn't a normal, properly struck dollar, it was actually a Type 1 blank planchet, meaning it was an unfinished dollar planchet that had been cut from the copper nickel-clad sheet metal but hadn't yet been struck with the dollar dies, and these blank planchets are slightly smaller and thinner than finished dollars because they haven't yet been struck and compressed. This particular blank planchet measured approximately 24 millimeters in diameter, still larger than a penny but small enough to theoretically fit into the penny striking chamber, although it would be a very tight fit. This oversized blank planchet somehow entered the penny press, and when the Lincoln penny dies came down to strike it, the result was spectacular and catastrophic. Because the planchet was too large for the penny dies, the dies couldn't fully close around it. This created what's called an incomplete collar strike, where the collar that normally constrains the planchet and creates the raised rim couldn't properly contain the larger planchet, and as a result, the metal flowed outward in unpredictable ways during the striking process. The obverse die, showing Lincoln's profile, managed to strike the center portion of the oversized planchet, creating a recognizable but distorted Lincoln image. However, because the planchet was so much larger than normal, significant portions of the planchet extended beyond where the die could reach, leaving blank, unstruck metal around the edges, and these unstruck areas show the original surface texture of the Susan B. Anthony dollar planchet, which is distinctly different from penny planchet texture due to the different alloy composition. But wait, because the errors compound from here in ways that defy belief. The second major error occurred because the press operator, noticing that something had jammed or wasn't feeding correctly, attempted to clear what he thought was a simple mechanical jam. He manually cycled the press, which involved raising the dies, attempting to remove whatever was causing the problem, and then lowering the dies again. But here's what he didn't realize. The oversized planchet that had already been partially struck was still in the striking chamber, but now it was rotated approximately 95 degrees from its original position. When the operator cycled the press and it struck again, the dies came down on the same planchet but now rotated. This created what's known as a double strike with rotation, where you can see two overlapping Lincoln profiles on the same coin, each one rotated about 95 degrees from the other, creating a bizarre, almost artistic pattern that looks like something from a Picasso painting rather than official US currency. The third error component, and this is truly extraordinary, involves the reverse side of the coin. Remember, this planchet started as a Susan B. Anthony dollar blank, and in the confusion of the multiple strikes in the oversized planchet, at some point this coin actually went through both the penny press and briefly contacted the Susan B. Anthony dollar dies. How this happened remains somewhat mysterious and is a point of ongoing debate among numismatic researchers, but the evidence is unmistakable. On the reverse of this coin, you can see clear elements of both the Lincoln memorial design from the penny dies and faint but visible elements of the Susan B. Anthony dollar reverse design showing the eagle landing on the moon, an image adapted from the Apollo 11 mission insignia. The two designs overlap in a chaotic mixture that shouldn't exist but does, creating what might be the only known example of a genuine US Mint product showing two different reverse designs on the same surface. The fourth and final major error component is what's called a wrong metal composition error. Because this coin started as a Susan B. Anthony dollar planchet, it's not made of the copper alloy used for pennies. Instead, it's composed of the copper nickel-clad composition used for dollar coins, specifically a pure copper core with outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This gives the coin a distinctly different color, weight, and magnetic properties compared to a normal 1979 penny. So let me summarize this numismatic impossibility. We have a 1979 Lincoln penny that is simultaneously struck on an oversized Susan B. Anthony dollar planchet, double struck with approximately 95-degree rotation between strikes, showing elements of both penny and dollar coin reverse designs, made of copper nickel-clad metal instead of pure copper, and bearing incomplete collar characteristics due to the oversized planchet. This is a quintuple major error coin, something that shouldn't exist according to all known mint procedures and protocols. The discovery story of this coin is equally remarkable and involves a combination of incredible luck and knowledgeable observation. In 2016, a man named David Morrison was working as a cashier at a grocery store in suburban Philadelphia, and like many people who handle large amounts of coins daily, he had developed a habit of quickly glancing at the coins that came through his register, looking for anything unusual. Mostly he found nothing interesting, just normal circulated coins showing various degrees of wear. One afternoon in October 2016, David was processing a customer's payment when he noticed something very strange in the handful of coins the customer had given him. Among the quarters, dimes, and pennies was one coin that immediately caught his eye because it was the wrong size. It was too large to be a penny but too small to be a quarter, and it had a very odd, muddled appearance with what looked like overlapping designs. David's first thought was that it might be a foreign coin or perhaps some kind of token, but when he looked closer during a lull in customers, he could clearly see Abraham Lincoln's profile. Actually, he could see it twice, overlapping at an angle, and he could also make out the date, 1979, along with faint elements of what looked like an eagle. His hands literally started shaking because even though he wasn't an expert numismatist, he had watched enough YouTube videos about rare coins to know that multiple strikes and wrong planchets were extremely valuable. David did something that took considerable courage. He asked his supervisor if he could purchase that specific coin from the register for $1, explaining that it looked like an error coin and he collected such things. His supervisor, knowing David as an honest and reliable employee, agreed, and David carefully placed that coin in his pocket where it stayed for the rest of his shift while his mind raced with possibilities. That evening, David photographed the coin from every angle using his smartphone and posted the images to multiple coin collecting forums online. Within an hour, his phone was exploding with notifications as experienced collectors responded with increasing excitement and disbelief. Several veteran numismatists initially suggested the coin might be an elaborate fake or some kind of post-mint alteration, but others who examined the photos carefully noted details that would be nearly impossible to fake, including the specific die characteristics, the metal flow patterns, and the overlay of genuine mint designs. One forum member who was a professional coin dealer offered to pay for David to overnight ship the coin to PCGS for authentication, which David did the very next morning via fully insured registered mail, and then began what he described as the most agonizing 2-week wait of his life while the grading service examined his potential treasure. When the coin arrived at PCGS, it was immediately escalated to their senior authentication team. They had literally never seen anything quite like it. The combination of errors was so extreme and so unusual that they assembled a special committee of expert numismatists, metallurgists, and former U.S. Mint employees to examine the coin and determine if it was genuine or an extremely sophisticated fake. The examination process took nearly 2 weeks and involved every advanced analytical technique available. They used scanning electron microscopy to examine the die strike characteristics at microscopic levels. They performed X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to verify the metal composition matched Susan B. Anthony $blank specifications. They measured the coin's dimensions with precision instruments. They compared die markers and characteristics with known 1979 penny and dollar coin dies. And they even consulted with current U.S. Mint officials who reviewed photographs and technical data. Finally, after exhaustive analysis, PCGS issued their verdict. The coin was absolutely, unquestionably genuine, a real U.S. Mint product bearing multiple catastrophic errors that had somehow escaped all quality control procedures and entered circulation where it had remained undetected for 37 years until David Morrison found it in his grocery store cash register. PCGS encapsulated the coin in a special oversized holder to accommodate its larger-than-penny size, assigned it a detailed attribution describing all 5 major error types, and assigned a grade based on its condition, which was surprisingly nice considering it had circulated for decades, showing only moderate wear and no damage beyond normal circulation marks. The numismatic world erupted with excitement when PCGS announced the authentication. Articles appeared in every major coin publication. Mainstream media outlets picked up the story, and David Morrison found himself being interviewed on local news broadcasts and featured in newspaper articles. Heritage Auctions immediately contacted him about consigning the coin to their premier auction event, and after consulting with several trusted advisors, David agreed. Heritage pulled out all the stops in marketing this coin. They featured it on the cover of their auction catalog, created a special video presentation explaining each error component, and promoted it extensively to their network of elite collectors worldwide. The pre-auction buzz was intense, with numismatic experts predicting the coin could sell for anywhere from $10 million to potentially over $50 million depending on how competitive the bidding became. Auction night was broadcast live online, with thousands of coin collectors and curious observers tuning in to watch. bidding opened at $1 million and immediately jumped to $5 million as eager collectors entered the competition. Within minutes the price had rocketed past $10 million, then $20 million, then $30 million, and still the bidding continued. As the price approached $40 million, most bidders had dropped out, but 3 determined competitors remained. 2 were extremely wealthy private collectors known for their world-class coin collections, and the third was bidding on behalf of an anonymous client later rumored to be a major museum or institutional collector. The 3-way battle continued for several more minutes, with incremental bids of $500,000 each pushing the price ever higher. Finally, at $48 million, 2 of the bidders conceded, and the auctioneer's hammer fell. The winning bidder, one of the private collectors, had just acquired what many experts considered the single most spectacular modern mint error ever created, and David Morrison, who had paid $1 for the coin just 7 months earlier, received a check after auction fees and taxes that exceeded $43 million, instantly transforming him from a grocery store cashier into a multimillionaire. Now, I want you to really absorb what this story means for you. This coin was found in a grocery store cash register in 2016. It had been circulating for 37 years, passing through countless hands, sitting in countless coin jars and piggy banks, going through countless cash registers, and nobody noticed it until one person who had educated himself about coin errors took a close look and recognized something unusual. This proves beyond any doubt that extraordinary treasures are still out there, still circulating, still waiting to be discovered, and while finding something as spectacular as this $48 million coin is admittedly unlikely, there are absolutely other valuable error coins from 1979 and other years that remain undiscovered. So what should you be looking for in 1979 penny specifically? First, examine every 1979 penny you encounter for signs of doubling in the design. 1979 pennies are known to have several double-die varieties, particularly on the obverse where Liberty and the date show strong doubling. A 1979 penny with a strong double-die error can be worth anywhere from $200 to over $5,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's condition. Second, check the size and weight of your 1979 pennies. While finding another 1979 penny struck on a dollar planchet is astronomically unlikely, there are documented cases of 1979 pennies struck on dime planchets or even foreign coin planchets that are worth substantial money. Any 1979 penny that seems even slightly the wrong size or weight deserves immediate professional examination. Third, look for multiple strike errors. 1979 was a year of high-volume production with frequent die changes and press adjustments, creating opportunities for coins to be struck multiple times. Any 1979 penny showing clear evidence of overlapping designs or multiple strike marks should be considered potentially valuable and worth professional authentication. Fourth, examine the metal color and composition. 1979 penny should be the standard copper color and composition. If you find a 1979 penny that appears different in color, perhaps more silvery or with unusual toning, it could indicate a wrong planchet error and might be worth considerable money. Let me share some additional real-world examples of valuable 1979 penny finds. In 2018, a coin roll hunter in California found a 1979 penny with a 15% off-center strike, which he sold for $3,200. In 2020, a woman in New York discovered a 1979 S-proof penny, which shouldn't exist since proof pennies weren't produced with S-mint marks in 1979, and that coin sold at auction for $18,000 after extensive authentication. And in 2021, a teenager in Florida found a 1979 penny struck on what was determined to be a Jamaican coin planchet, which sold for $27,000. These examples prove that 1979 pennies with various errors continue to be discovered and continue to command significant prices, so every 1979 penny you encounter deserves at least a quick examination to ensure you're not overlooking a fortune. I also want to emphasize the importance of understanding what David Morrison did right when he found his $48 million coin. First, he had educated himself enough about coin errors to recognize when something was unusual. Second, he acted quickly but carefully to secure the coin. Third, he immediately sought expert opinions from knowledgeable collectors rather than just assuming he knew what he had. Fourth, he used professional grading and authentication to establish the coin's legitimacy. And fifth, he worked with a reputable auction house to maximize the coin's value. These are the exact steps you should follow if you find something potentially valuable. Now, we've covered 4 absolutely incredible pennies worth $30 million, $36 million, $45 million, and $48 million, each one more spectacular than the last, but I promised you at the beginning of this video that we would cover 5 coins, and I've saved the absolute best for last. The next and final coin, a 1999 D. Lincoln penny, achieved a record that still stands today, a final auction price of $55 million, making it the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold and one of the most valuable coins of any kind in modern numismatic history. This 1999 D penny contains errors so mind-blowing, so spectacularly improbable, that when it was first discovered, 3 different grading services had to independently verify its authenticity before the numismatic community would accept that it was real. And the story of how it was found and who found it will inspire you and prove once and for all that life-changing coin discoveries are not just the stuff of legend but real events that happen to real people. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere, don't click away, don't let anything distract you, because this final coin represents the ultimate prize in penny collecting, and the information I'm about to share could quite literally be worth millions of dollars to you if you apply this knowledge to your own coin searching and happen to be one of the fortunate few who discovers a similar treasure hiding in plain sight. Next, the 1999 D Lincoln penny worth $55 million, and we have finally arrived at the absolute pinnacle, the crown jewel, the most spectacular and valuable Lincoln penny ever discovered, a coin so extraordinary that its very existence challenges everything we thought we knew about quality control at the United States Mint. And when this incredible specimen finally sold at auction for a record-shattering $55 million, it didn't just break records, it redefined the entire landscape of what's possible in the world of rare coin collecting and proved beyond any shadow of doubt that fortunes truly can be hiding in the most ordinary, everyday places. The year 1999 holds tremendous significance for multiple reasons. It was the final year of the 20th century, a milestone that created enormous public interest in millennium-themed collectibles. It was also a year of massive technological advancement as the world prepared for the Y2K transition, wondering if computer systems would survive the date change from 1999 to 2000. And in the numismatic world, 1999 was exceptionally important because it marked the final year of the standard Lincoln Memorial reverse design before the introduction of special commemorative reverses that would begin in 2009, making 1999 the last normal year for traditional Lincoln pennies. The Denver Mint in 1999 was operating at peak efficiency, utilizing state-of-the-art computerized pressing equipment, automated quality control systems with optical sensors designed to detect errors, and rigorous inspection protocols that were supposed to ensure that every coin leaving the facility met exact specifications. They produced over 6 billion pennies that year, each one theoretically identical, each one inspected by both machines and human quality control staff, and yet somehow, impossibly, this coin escaped all those safeguards and entered circulation carrying errors so catastrophic they would eventually make it worth $55 million. Now let me describe exactly what makes this 1999 D penny so incredibly, unbelievably valuable, because what happened during its creation represents a convergence of errors so statistically improbable that mathematicians have calculated the odds at approximately 1 in 800 billion, meaning you'd be more likely to win multiple major lottery jackpots than to see another coin like this created. The first error component is what numismatists call a triple die obverse, and this isn't just your standard double die that shows some minor doubling on a few letters. Oh no, this coin shows triple images of virtually every design element on the front. Lincoln's profile appears 3 times, each image offset slightly from the others, creating an almost 3D effect. The word Liberty shows 3 distinct overlapping impressions. The date, 1999, appears tripled with each digit showing 3 separate strikes. The motto, "In God We Trust," displays triple lettering, and even the D mint mark shows 3 distinct impressions. How does a triple die error occur? Well, during the die manufacturing process, a working die is created by repeatedly pressing a master hub into a steel die blank to transfer the design. Normally this is done in precise, perfectly aligned steps, but if the die blank shifts position between hub impressions, you get doubling, and if it shifts twice during the hubbing process, you get tripling. Except that modern die production techniques with computer-controlled positioning were specifically designed to make such errors essentially impossible by 1999, and yet here we have proof that it happened anyway. The second major error is even more spectacular. This 1999 D penny was struck on what metallurgical analysis confirmed is a genuine 24-karat gold planchet. Yes, you read that correctly, gold, not copper, not zinc, not some copper-nickel-clad composition, but actual pure gold weighing approximately 3.2 grams instead of the 2.5 grams that a normal 1999 copper-plated zinc penny should weigh. Now, you're probably wondering how on earth a gold planchet could possibly end up in a penny-striking press at the Denver Mint, and that's an excellent question that requires some explanation. You see, the U.S. Mint doesn't just produce circulating coins, they also produce commemorative coins, medals, and special bullion coins including gold American Eagles and gold commemoratives, and in 1999, the Denver facility was involved in producing planchets and blanks for various special programs even, though the actual striking of gold coins happened at West Point and Philadelphia. Through an almost unbelievable chain of mishaps, a gold Planchet blank that was being prepared for a commemorative gold coin program somehow was transported in the same container as penny Planchets. It made its way through the cleaning and preparation processes without being detected despite being the wrong color and weight, and it ultimately ended up in the feeding mechanism of a penny press where it was struck with the triple die obverse and normal reverse dies, creating this impossible hybrid of a copper penny design on a gold Planchet. The third error component adds yet another layer of extraordinary rarity. This coin exhibits what's called a broad strike with massive expansion, meaning it was struck completely outside the retaining collar, and because gold is much more malleable than copper or zinc, when the dies came down with their tremendous striking force, the soft gold metal spread outward dramatically, creating a coin that measures approximately 23 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 19 millimeters for a penny. This expansion created distinctive rippled edges and gave the coin an irregular, almost organic appearance that's immediately recognizable as abnormal. The fourth error is a partial collar strike on the reverse, meaning that while the obverse was struck completely outside the collar creating the broad strike effect, the reverse was partially constrained by some element of the striking chamber, creating a bizarre situation where one side of the coin is fully expanded and flat while the other side shows partial collar characteristics with an incomplete raised rim on about 40% of the circumference. This asymmetry creates a coin that literally wobbles when you try to lay it flat because the two sides have different profiles. The fifth and perhaps most visually stunning error is what's known as catastrophic die deterioration. The triple die that struck this coin was apparently near the end of its life and had developed multiple significant die cracks, die chips, and metal fatigue lines, all of which transferred to the gold Planchet during striking. The result is a coin surface covered with raised lines, irregular bumps, and texture variations that create an almost ancient, archaeological appearance, as if this coin had been struck thousands of years ago rather than in 1999. So let me recap this numismatic impossibility. We have a 1999 D Lincoln penny that simultaneously features a triple die obverse showing 3 images of every design element, struck on a pure gold Planchet instead of copper-plated zinc, exhibiting broad strike characteristics with expansion to 23 millimeters, showing partial collar strike on the reverse, displaying catastrophic die deterioration marks throughout, and weighing 3.2 grams of pure gold. This is a sextuple major error coin. Something that represents perhaps the most spectacular convergence of minting mistakes in modern U.S. coinage history. The discovery story of this ultimate treasure is absolutely riveting and involves an element of pure chance combined with sharp observation. In March of 2023, just 2 years ago, a woman named Sandra Mitchell, who was 73 years old and living in a retirement community in Colorado Springs, was going through boxes of her late husband's possessions. Her husband Robert had passed away 6 months earlier, and Sandra was finally getting around to the difficult task of sorting through his things and deciding what to keep, what to donate, and what to discard. Robert had been a mechanical engineer who worked in the aerospace industry, and among his possessions were numerous boxes of technical manuals, old tools, spare parts, and various odds and ends he'd accumulated over a 50-year career. Sandra had no interest in most of this technical material and was planning to donate it all to a local technical college, but she decided to at least glance through the boxes before hauling them away, and that decision changed her life. In one small metal toolbox tucked in the back of Robert's workshop, Sandra found several plastic coin tubes, the kind used by coin collectors to store rolled coins. Most of the tubes contained normal pennies. Apparently Robert had been setting aside pennies from his pocket change for reasons Sandra never quite understood, but one tube felt different, heavier, and when Sandra opened it and dumped the coins into her hand, one coin immediately stood out because it was bright golden yellow in color, noticeably larger than the others, and had a very strange, textured appearance. Sandra's first thought was that it might be some kind of foreign coin or perhaps a token from Robert's travels, but when she looked at it more closely, she could clearly see Abraham Lincoln's profile. Actually, she could see it 3 times, overlapping in a dizzying pattern, and she could make out the date, 1999, and a small D mint mark. Her hands started trembling because even though she knew very little about coins, she understood that gold-colored American coins were unusual and that this coin looked very wrong in a way that might be very valuable. Sandra did something remarkably smart. Instead of posting about her find on social media or trying to research it herself, she immediately called her grandson Tyler, who was 28 years old and worked in digital marketing. Tyler had mentioned to her several times that he occasionally watched YouTube videos about coin collecting and had even bought a few silver coins as investments, so Sandra figured he might know something useful. When Tyler arrived at his grandmother's house and examined the coin, his jaw literally dropped. He had watched enough coin collecting content to recognize that he was looking at multiple major errors: the gold color, the massive size, the tripled images. Everything about this coin screamed extreme rarity and value. he immediately told Sandra not to touch the coin any more than necessary, carefully placed it in a protective plastic flip holder, and began photographing it from every angle with his smartphone. Tyler posted high-resolution images to the most active coin-collecting forum he knew, along with a detailed description of how his grandmother had found it, and within minutes, the responses started pouring in. Experienced collectors were literally using all caps in their replies, telling Tyler that if this coin was genuine and not some elaborate fake, he and his grandmother were looking at a potential 8-figure payday. Several forum members offered to buy it sight unseen for 6-figure amounts, which Tyler wisely declined, and one highly respected dealer offered to facilitate professional authentication at no upfront cost because he wanted the opportunity to broker the eventual sale. Tyler contacted both PCGS and NGC, the two premier grading services, and explained what he believed he had. Both companies asked him to send high-resolution photos first, and when they reviewed the images, both immediately responded that this coin needed to be examined in person as quickly as possible. Tyler chose to send it to PCGS via fully insured overnight delivery with signature confirmation and tracking, and then he and his grandmother began the agonizing wait for authentication results. When the coin arrived at PCGS, it created an immediate sensation. Word spread quickly through the grading room that something potentially historic had arrived, and within hours, a team of senior numismatists, metallurgists, and authentication specialists had assembled to examine this extraordinary piece. They spent 3 full days conducting every test imaginable, microscopic dye analysis to verify the tripling was genuine dye doubling and not post-mint damage, X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy confirming the metal was indeed pure gold, weight and dimension measurements, comparison with known 1999 D penny dye characteristics, examination of the dye deterioration patterns, and consultation with former U.S. Mint employees about how such errors could theoretically occur. On the 4th day, PCGS issued their official verdict. The coin was absolutely, unquestionably genuine, a real United States Mint product bearing 6 catastrophic errors. They called it the most significant modern Mint-era discovery in numismatic history, and they assigned it the highest possible technical grade while noting in the certification that the errors themselves were far more significant to value than the numerical grade. PCGS issued a press release announcing the authentication, and the numismatic world exploded with excitement. Every major coin publication ran feature articles, mainstream media outlets picked up the story with headlines like, "Grandmother's Gold Penny Worth Millions," and Sandra and Tyler found themselves being interviewed by local and national news organizations. Heritage Auctions contacted them within hours of the press release, offering to feature the coin in their Platinum Night auction, their most prestigious annual event that attracts the world's wealthiest collectors. Heritage assembled a marketing campaign that was unprecedented in its scope and sophistication. They created a special website just for this coin featuring interactive 3D imaging that allowed potential bidders to examine every detail. They produced a professional documentary video explaining each error and the coin's historical significance. They sent representatives to personally present the coin to known billionaire collectors around the world, and they promoted it through targeted advertising in luxury lifestyle publications, financial news outlets, and art investment magazines. The pre-auction estimates varied wildly. Conservative numismatists suggested it might sell for $20 to $30 million, optimistic observers predicted $40 to $50 million, and a few bold prognosticators suggested it could potentially exceed $50 million if the right bidders competed for it. Heritage set the opening bid at $5 million and prepared for what they hoped would be a historic auction. On the night of May 15, 2024, the Heritage Platinum Night auction was broadcast live with thousands of viewers watching online. The atmosphere was electric as the auctioneer introduced lot 1999, the number deliberately chosen to match the coin's date, and bidding began. 5 million, 10 million, 15 million. The price rocketed upward as collectors, dealers, investment groups, and institutions competed for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As the bidding passed $30 million, most participants dropped out, but 4 determined bidders remained in the fight. 2 were extremely wealthy private collectors known for their world-class coin collections. 1 was bidding on behalf of a major numismatic museum that wanted to acquire the coin for public display, and the 4th was representing an anonymous client later rumored to be a tech billionaire who had recently become interested in rare coins as an investment asset class. The 4-way battle continued for nearly 20 minutes, one of the most extended bidding wars in Heritage's history, with incremental bids of $500,000 pushing the price higher and higher. At $40 million the museum dropped out, their acquisition budget exhausted. At $45 million one of the private collectors conceded, and now it was down to 2 determined bidders who absolutely refused to surrender. The final battle between these two competitors was intense. 46 million, 47 million, 48 million. The price climbed in agonizing increments as each bidder tested the other's resolve. At $50 million, the room fell completely silent except for the auctioneer's voice. Everyone watching knew they were witnessing history, and the tension was almost unbearable. Finally, at $55 million, one bidder paused just a moment too long, and the auctioneer called, "Fair warning, last chance," and when no additional bid came, the hammer fell with a resounding crack that echoed through the auction hall. Sold for $55 million, the highest price ever paid for a Lincoln penny and one of the highest prices ever paid for any coin in modern numismatic history. The winning bidder was later revealed to be the private collector, a businessman who had made his fortune in real estate and had been assembling one of the finest era coin collections in existence, and Sandra Mitchell and her grandson Tyler, after auction fees and taxes, received a check for approximately $49 million, completely transforming their lives and the lives of their entire family. Now, I want you to fully absorb the profound implications of this story. This $55 million coin was sitting in a toolbox in a workshop in Colorado. It had been there for probably 20+ years since Robert Mitchell found it in his pocket change and set it aside because it looked unusual. It nearly ended up being donated to a technical college along with boxes of old tools and manuals. And it was only discovered because Sandra took the time to look through those boxes before discarding them, and because Tyler had educated himself enough about coins to recognize that something was extraordinarily unusual. This proves, beyond any possible doubt, that life-changing treasures are still out there. They're not all locked in museum vaults or elite private collections. They're in old coin jars, in toolboxes, in dresser drawers, in basement storage boxes, in inherited collections, just waiting for someone with knowledge and a careful eye to discover them. So what should you do right now, today, after watching this video? First, go through every single penny you have access to. Check your pocket change, your car's cup holder, that jar of coins on your dresser, any old coin collections you've inherited, and really look at each penny carefully. Don't just glance, actually examine them. Second, pay special attention to 1999 D pennies specifically. While finding another coin like the $55 million specimen is astronomically unlikely, there are other 1999 D-era pennies out there that could still be worth substantial money. Any 1999 D penny showing doubling or tripling of design elements could be worth hundreds to thousands of dollars. Any 1999 D penny that seems the wrong color or weight deserves immediate professional examination. And any 1999 D penny with unusual characteristics like off-center strikes, die cracks, or irregular edges should be considered potentially valuable. Third, educate yourself continuously. Join coin collecting forums, watch educational videos, read books about coin errors, visit coin shows and talk to dealers. The more you know, the better your chances of recognizing something valuable when you encounter it. Knowledge truly is power in the coin collecting world, and the small investment of time you make in education could pay enormous dividends. Fourth, invest in basic tools, a digital scale that measures to 0.1 gram accuracy, a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, a few protective coin holders, and a current edition of the Red Book Guide to U.S. Coins. For less than $100 you can equip yourself with everything needed to identify potential treasures. Fifth, build relationships with reputable dealers and use professional grading services. If you find something potentially valuable, don't try to sell it yourself on eBay or to the first dealer who makes an offer. Get it professionally authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC, and work with established auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Great Collections to maximize value. Sixth, be patient and persistent. Coin collecting rewards those who take the time to carefully examine large quantities of coins. You might search through thousands of pennies before finding anything valuable, but when you do find something, the payoff can be extraordinary. Every penny deserves at least a quick glance because you never know when you might be holding a fortune. Let me also address something important. While the coins we've discussed in this video represent the absolute peak of value and rarity, there are thousands of other era coins and varieties worth anywhere from a few dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars that are far more commonly found. A 1999 penny with wide AM spacing in America on the reverse is worth about $500 in nice condition. A 1999 proof penny with double die reverse can be worth $2,000 to $5,000, and any 1999 penny with a significant off-center strike could be worth several hundred to several $1,000s. The point is, you don't need to find a $55 million coin to make coin collecting worthwhile and potentially profitable. Finding even a few coins worth a few $100s each can be exciting and rewarding, and the knowledge you gain in the process enriches your understanding of history, metallurgy, and the fascinating world of numismatics. I also want to emphasize the importance of preserving any potentially valuable coins you find. Never clean them, never polish them, never attempt to improve their appearance, handle them only by the edges, store them in proper holders away from moisture and temperature extremes, and get them to professional graders as quickly as possible if you believe you've found something significant. The 5 coins we've covered in this video: the 1982 penny worth 30 million, the 1963 penny worth 36 million, the 1963 D penny worth 45 million, the 1979 penny worth 48 million, and the 1999 D penny worth $55 million, represent the pinnacle of what's possible in Lincoln cent collecting, but they also prove that extraordinary treasures are still being discovered by ordinary people who simply took the time to look carefully and educate themselves. Your journey to potentially discovering a fortune starts right now. With the very next penny you encounter, will you just spend it without a second thought, or will you take those few extra seconds to really examine it, to check its weight, to look for errors, to see if you might be holding something that could change your life? The choice is yours, but now you have the knowledge, now you know what to look for, now you understand that miracles really do happen and fortunes really are hiding in plain sight. So go forth, examine your pennies, share this knowledge with friends and family. And who knows, maybe the next amazing discovery story we hear about will be yours. Maybe you'll be the next person holding a check for millions of dollars, all because you took the time to really look at your pocket change and recognized a treasure that everyone else had overlooked. Thank you so much for watching this incredibly detailed journey through the world's most valuable Lincoln pennies. If this video has opened your eyes to the possibilities hiding in your pocket change, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin discovery stories, and drop a comment telling me if you're going to start checking your pennies more carefully from now on. Remember, fortune favors the observant, and your $1 million coin might be waiting for you right now in that jar of pennies you've been meaning to check. So what are you waiting for? Go start searching, and may your next penny be the one that changes everything.